The vetting process of ministerial nominees is a significant step in upholding democratic governance and ensuring accountability. As the Appointments Committee of Parliament has started its work of rigorously examining the President's nominees, the role of the chairperson has come under the spotlight for its pivotal role in steering these deliberations. But the disorderly nature of the Premier sitting has raised a lot of eyebrows about the chairperson's suitability for the role. Now, in this edition, we ask the simple questions: why did it happen? And what the future holds for appointees. I am Kemeni Amano, and in this edition of Hot Issues, I sit with the chairperson of Parliament's Appointment Committee, who has rather received harsh criticism over his leadership style. We see for the first time his perspective and his take on how events unfolded at the first sitting. My guest is the first Deputy Speaker and Akachi South MP, Bernard Ahiafor. You're welcome to Hot Issues.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start off with the vetting process. Why was it so disorderly?
Well, thank you very much for your question. Disorderly in the sense that, for me, that is my very first experience as the chairman of the vetting committee. I've been part of the vetting committee as a ranking member for constitutional, legal, and parliamentary committees, and the rules allow that the subject matter committee should join. That was the only occasion I took part in the vetting committee. So my very first experience as a member of parliament, though I am in my fourth term in parliament. While certain occurrences demand that we should give the minority leader some room to operate, I may say that was the reason for which the vetting appears to be disorderly. Two, I observe that we have accommodated some fresh members of parliament who were then going through the orientation process. So I wouldn't blame them. They do not know the rudiment of the game in parliament. But going forward, I believe Ghanaians will see more orderly vetting.
Sounds to me like you've had reflections on what has happened. Are you happy
Definitely,
with the past?
in life, whatever happened, you need to reflect on it and improve on it going forward. So
And in
I
your
have a
reflections?
reflection, and definitely Ghanaians are going to improve. Ghanaians are going to see an improved version of vetting the next time we are conducting vetting of the minister nominees.
I take it as you were not happy with how the last vetting process went.
Well, that is how it was supposed to be. In life, going through something for the first time, maybe you wouldn't like the way it was. You would have wished that you have the experience that you have after going through that to be able to bring those experiences to bear. I have gone through it the first time. So next time, I also know
It's going to be better. Let's look at other reflections that we have also heard or seen since the vetting of the first three nominees of the president. From the minority point of view, you were, in their words, extremely partisan, practically gagging them from interviewing the nominees.
Well, I take a very great exception to that in the sense that I have accommodated them and have overindulged them. Going forward, I don't know how they are going to describe me. I never gagged them. For me, when you agree at a pre-sitting meeting or at a meeting that this is what you are going to do, you must go by it. But I went to the extent of bending the ground rules that we have agreed upon to even accommodate certain things that I ought not to have accommodated. Yet, they describe me to be unfair to them. Well, posterity will be the judge.
Two things I want us to look at. What are the things that were not supposed to happen that happened?
That one has to do with the number of people I should give the opportunity to ask questions. 2, there should be some limit on the number of questions or the time frame within which the minority leader is supposed to ask questions, or the leadership of the committee is supposed to ask questions. It looks like the very first experience he had unlimited period, and he was, for me, excessive in the circumstances.
I see. You don't think that it was because you were shielding the nominees from questions?
Well, I was not shielding. I allowed the nominees to answer questions asked. But as a matter of fact, you are there to make sure that the rules apply. Even in court, if a witness is in the witness box fixing cross-examination, no judge will allow you to ask incriminating questions. You see, the vetting exercise, you should have in mind the constitutional imperative in Article 78 and 94. What is Article 94 saying? A person qualified as a minister. 78 is saying a person qualified as a minister if such a person is otherwise qualified to be a member of Parliament. Now, 94 set out the qualifications of a member of Parliament. The 3 people vetted are all members of Parliament, senior members of Parliament for that matter. Honorable Kesel Ahiafor, the current majority leader of Parliament. Honorable Dominic Ayeni, I entered Parliament with him the same year, Deputy Attorney General in the 6th Parliament, and has been in Parliament till today. Honorable John Abdullah Ejinapo is not a first-term MP. So clearly, these people have already qualified and they are members of Parliament. So constitutionally, they don't have a problem being a minister, because the Constitution says for you to be a minister, you must qualify to be a member of Parliament. So being members of Parliament, they are already qualified to be a minister. But the requirement is that you vetted them. So in vetting them, I believe the vetting should be geared towards the competency regarding the field that they are going to occupy. Ahiafor was the Deputy Finance Minister in the 6th Parliament, now going to occupy the position of a substantive Finance Minister. So questions that we are going to ask him should be geared towards his expertise, how he's going to manage the bigger portfolio from Deputy Minister as the Minister responsible for Finance. Now, the same thing applies to Dominic Ayeni. Now, we are all lawyers. In the case of Dominic Ayeni, I've also operated from a chamber and still operating from a chamber. Now, if you know the workings of we lawyers, you can be in a chamber with a colleague, but you are doing different cases. The fact that there is a chamber by name Ahiafor and Associates doesn't mean that every case in Ahiafor and Associates is handled by Bernard Ahiafor, because there are other partners and colleague lawyers in that particular chamber.
Which is why you disallowed or had challenges with the traffic question.
So
but
you do not ask incriminating question. We all know conflict of interest is a problem. And the person told you that lawyer Bassett, was handling this particular case when he was operating from his chamber. When he moved away to form his own chamber, he moved with the client. Therefore, he has nothing to do with that particular client in his professional capacity as a lawyer. This is a satisfactory answer. The fact that somebody operated from your chamber as a lawyer to a client doesn't put you in a conflict of interest situation and disqualify you from acting as the Attorney General and the Minister.
But that's just one example. Questions on oral, questions on the Free Senior High School, questions on the tribunals. You raise objections with all these questions.
No, I never raised objections regarding questions put to him on the tribunal. He has provided answers to questions relating to the establishment of the tribunal. His point was that the tribunal is still in the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. It has not been abolished, or the Constitution has not been amended. Now, some attempts were made to take it out of the Court Act. But we all know the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, above and beyond which no further law exists. So therefore, if it still remains in the Constitution and the government in power have decided to use what is contained in the Constitution, you cannot blame that particular government for trying to do what the Constitution says we should do, but rather trying to undo what the Constitution says we should do is where the problem lies. Because if the Constitution were to be amended and then the tribunal is taken out of the Constitution, if a government is now coming to do it, we can say it is unconstitutional.
So
the previous step of undoing what the Constitution says we should do, that is where the problem
which is where you raise concerns with
lies.
The follow-ups. Hang on, the follow-ups on the tribunals. Yes. But away from that, right?
Let me explain something to you.
Okay, quickly.
We have gone beyond a certain level to admit one question from those are classified as friends to the committee. So it will be an abuse of the right given you. Instead of asking one question, you want to ask more than one question, because that was what we agreed upon. So after asking your one question, if you want to ask another question as if you have a right as a member of the committee, I would prompt you that you are entitled to one question.
Why did you agree to friends of the committee asking questions?
You see, we are governed by rules. And Parliament is the master of its own rules. If you look at Order 217 of our standing orders, in addition to the members of the appointment committee, leadership of the subject matter committee is supposed to join in conducting the vetting. For instance, when we were vetting Honorable Kiselato Ahiafor for the position of the finance minister, leadership of the finance committee, they are supposed to join the vetting committee by the imperative in Order 217 of our own standing orders. We are in the process of composing the committee. So for now, we do not have a finance committee in place. But Parliament, being a master of its own rules, we met as a committee and indicated that there were members of the Finance Committee of the 8th Parliament who have returned to the 9th Parliament. And by practice, when the whips are composing the committee, if you served in a particular committee, hardly will you be taken away from that committee if you come back to continue your responsibilities as a member of Parliament. It's only in a few occasions and a stated ground that you can be removed from the committee. So the minority leader and then the minority whip were given the opportunity in a given circumstances to bring people as leadership of that supposed committee. The same thing applies to the majority. And technically, we cannot regard them as the leadership of those committees yet to be composed. So we have taken a decision that we should admit them as a friend of the committee in order not to completely close that particular door that will not take leadership of the subject matter committee. So the same thing applies to energy, and the same thing applies to...
Yeah, but whose idea was it that the friends of the committee...
No, it was a committee.
No, hang on. Whose idea was it that the friends of the committee should ask questions?
It was a decision taken at our meeting.
Your pre-sitting meeting.
If you read the whole of the Order 217, they have a right to ask questions. Okay. But the committee will have to decide the number of questions that they would ask. So at our meeting, before the vetting, we agreed that they should be given an opportunity to ask one question.
I see.
It was what the committee has agreed upon.
Will you agree to that again? That I was trying
to implement at the DC. Well, before we do the next vetting, we'll reflect on what happened at the previous vetting, and a decision will be taken. And whatever decision that the committee has taken, I will ensure that that decision is implemented. So if at our next meeting a decision is taken that will not admit such people, well, that is a decision taken by the committee, and as the chairperson, I will ensure that we implement the decision of the committee. Therefore, if a decision is taken, that no, in the circumstances, instead of one question, we should allow them to ask two questions. That is exactly what I am going to do.
I see. You've talked a lot about pre-sitting meetings. The impression, and in fact, the former majority leader also holds that same impression that, and I'm referring to Oseche Mensah Bonsu, that perhaps if there was a meeting between yourself and the minority side, what we saw on that day could have been prevented. But from what you're telling us, there indeed was a meeting.
Yes.
So their side operated in bad faith, would you say?
There was a meeting. Well, I will leave that for posterity to be the judge.
How do you feel about the Efutu MP, Alexander Apenyomakin, his conduct on that day?
Well, I'm not to comment on anybody's conduct. I will again leave that one for the general public.
There are those who think that he disrespected you or was disrespectful of you.
Well, that is their judgment and they are entitled to it.
Do you think he was disrespectful of your authority?
That is their judgment and they are entitled to it. You see, whatever you do, the general public is watching everything. So they've seen it all. So sometimes you allow them to form their own opinion. And they are entitled to their own opinion.
He seems to have frustrated you at some point.
Well, I wasn't frustrated.
You were
wasn't
not?
frustrated.
Even
Ahiafor, sitting before you, is a man with indomitable spirit. So I will not consider that to be a frustration.
So at the point when you were, we heard you, speak on top of your voice, practically screaming. What was it that was pushing you?
See, when you are given an opportunity or you are given a right to exercise, you don't abuse it. At a point, I felt that the opportunity given him to ask questions without limitation was being abused. That was my feeling. Because we all need to be guided by the rules.
And I ask about the issue of respect, because it wouldn't be the first time he seemed to have talked over you. When you first sat in Parliament as well, when the Speaker gave you the Speaker's seat the first time, he talked over you a lot.
Yes.
Which brings me to the question whether or not you think the minority leader respects you.
So if you watch that particular clip clearly, sitting down there, he's a minority leader. But I asked him to resume his seat, and he sat.
I see. Let's talk about how the public reflected on this. Because for the public, they thought you were weak. Are you weak?
Generally, I will not consider myself to be a weak person. But it is too early for the general public to conclude that Bernard Ahiafor is a weak person.
From all that they have seen? Well, your inability
they haven't seen it
your inability to be able to control affairs of that small group, the appointments committee, how chaotic the first one went. The public could then only come to the conclusion that you do not have what it takes to control a group like that.
Well, you see, as the chairman of the committee, there are a lot you should manage to get away with the situation, some of which, under no circumstances, will you put it in a public domain. So probably, I know what the public doesn't know. Therefore, the public is entitled to form that particular opinion.
I see. We'll come back to your interaction with the minority. But as you have rightly said, as chairman of the committee, you do have a lot of authority. But I'm wondering why you didn't implement any of those authority or any of those powers that you have. And I'll explain. Because when you look at Committees of Parliament, Article 103 in the 1992 Constitution, come to, Section 6. A committee appointed under this article shall have the powers, rights, and privileges of the High Court or a justice of the High Court at a trial.
Well, when people said that, particularly some members of Parliament, as a lawyer, I normally educate them that you do not have the powers of the High Court. If you are going to give a meaning to a provision, interpretation rules require that you read the provision as a whole. Therefore, if you read Article 103(6), the powers given to the committee is limited to the attendance of a witness. So if you wouldn't mind, you can read Article 103(6) to its conclusion, particularly the A and the B. You will come to a conclusion that no committee has an absolute power of the High Court. Your power is limited to only the attendance of a witness.
I see. And so there was no way
you can compel a witness to appear before you. You can compel a witness to produce a document. So they say no one judges a swimmer by the certificate on the shore. You have opened the Constitution and you've read Article 103. Conclude the entire of the Article 103(6). Then you come to a conclusion that your power in relation to the power of the High Court is limited to the attendance of a witness. And as a lawyer, as a constitutional expert, I wouldn't want to sit down there to arrogate myself the power of a High Court and try to exercise same at appointment committee, knowing very well that the power is limited to only attendance of a witness.
And you couldn't have held any of them to contempt for the way they behaved?
No.
Before the committee?
No. I do not think I should hold any of them for contempt.
I see. But we've seen committees in the past exert more authority, so to speak. Not only the Appointments Committee, but we've also seen committees like the Public Accounts Committee that has even issued temporary arrest of people who failed to provide documents of sorts.
Yes, that is why I am saying that the power of a parliamentary committee is equated to the power of the High Court in respect of attendance of a witness. So if you are a witness to appear before a public account committee and you failed, the public account committee can even issue what we call a subpoena. And if you do not honor, they can go and arrest you and produce you before the committee. If you have a document to produce, and you fail to produce the document, they can use the same process of a subpoena to get you to produce that particular document. That is why I'm saying that the constitutional provision is limited to the attendance of a witness before a committee.
So what you're saying is
if you are supposed to be a witness before a public accounts committee and you have refused, then in that case, the Constitution gives them the power of a witness, the power of the High Court. If you are to appear before a court of competent jurisdiction and you fail to appear before a court of competent jurisdiction, the court will give a subpoena and can even give an order for you to be arrested. It is in relation to you as a witness. So in the same vein, A committee of parliament has that particular power. Court can cite you for a contempt. Court can imprison you. You can sentence you, you can impose fine or imprison you. But no committee of parliament is able to do that.
I see. Honorable, when we come back, we'll look at the way forward and the future, vetting of the nominees. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is Hot Issues. My guest is First Deputy Speaker and Akachi South MP Bernard Ahiafor. Thank you so much for your patience.
You're welcome.
But from what you're saying, then it means that if this persists, there's pretty much nothing you can do, is there?
Much I cannot do in terms of what?
What you can do to stop the disorderliness during the committee sittings?
Well, as a chairman of the committee, you are to maintain order at the committee. You are to guide the committee members within the rules. And the committee members must also operate within the rules. But as I indicated, Ghanaians have not seen that happen in our first meeting because probably I know and I'm seized with some information that the general public is not aware. And it's not something that I am ready today or tomorrow to put out in the public. So that has accounted for certain things being accommodated at the committee sitting. But going forward, they will see clearly that we are applying the rules of the House.
Do you think that you thoroughly vetted the three nominees?
Well, I think we have thoroughly vetted them. By practice in Parliament, as I indicated, if a person holds leadership position in Parliament, then you are already a minister. Because if you are a majority leader of Parliament, you've qualified to be a member of Parliament, and you are a majority leader, you are already a minister.
But we want to find out whether or not the ministry which has been assigned to you, you can do the job there.
Okay, so vetting of those people doesn't have to take a long period because in terms of their constitutional qualification to occupy the position, it is not in doubt. So the only thing that may be in doubt is the level of their competence to be able to deliver. So vetting a leader in Parliament is not like somebody who is just coming that you have to ensure whether or not the person is qualified constitutionally to hold the position or otherwise. So I don't expect vetting of the members of Parliament to take ages.
You think it's just routine?
And then by practice, if you watch vetting of the leaders in Parliament, members of Parliament, already the person is constitutionally qualified to occupy the position. So what information do you again need from that particular person in order to establish his or her suitability to occupy that particular position? So I do not expect certain categories for us to spend long hours vetting them. I believe by practice, Honorable Ato Forson was a leader who was taken through hours of vetting.
Unnecessarily?
Yes. For me, I feel it was unnecessary. But based on the circumstances that we find ourselves, having regard to the ministry that he's going to occupy, we allow that whatever question that they have, they should ask. The nominee is capable of answering the question. And that was what we did.
Well, you sound like, because they have already qualified as ministers, then vetting processes like this are more or less just routine.
Not just routine per se. For instance, if you are appointed as a minister, for instance, the vetting committee must be interested in establishing whether or not you are even qualified to be a member of parliament, let alone being a minister of parliament, which must take some time to vet you on that. But you are already a member of parliament. You are already in a leadership, coterminous with being a minister of state. So why are we going to go into the trouble of establishing whether or not you are qualified to occupy that particular position?
Right.
So that element really is no longer there. So that must even truncate the period within which you are supposed to be vetted. That is the point that I am establishing.
Is there, I mean, for the committee, before you go into interrogate a nominee, are there set criteria you follow for the vetting process, or so to speak, you identify in the person?
Not really, because you do not have control over a vetting question that a member of the committee is going to ask. But the criteria that we follow is that you give opportunity to your left, you must give opportunity to the right. But this time round, by the power given by Ghanaian to the NDC, it cannot be one from the left and one from the right, in the sense that we are about 68 or 70%, and they are 30%. So in reality, the membership of the committee is done as such, in accordance with our rules. So members of the MPP minority on the committee are 4, but members of the NDC majority are 7. Therefore, it cannot be 1-1. So as a chairman of the committee, you must balance it. Maybe you take 1-1, the next time round you take 2-1, so that by the time the last person will speak, it will get to the leadership that will speak last. So you have those rudiments of the game that should guide you. Now, you are vetting a lot of people a day. Now, vetting is about asking the nominee a question. But by practice, because there are cameras on us, some members of parliament may want to show off. So the narration before the question is becoming too much. So you need to guide the person. That honorable member, you are supposed to be asking a question. You can lay a foundation, but the foundation should not be a thesis.
I see, and many times your guidance was not taken lightly at all.
You understand?
They were not happy with your guidance.
That is why I'm saying that, particularly the fresh members of parliament, which I would otherwise refer to as zygote in parliament, because they are less than a month in parliament, and by chance you end up there. They are yet to know the rudiment of the game. So sometimes you give them the benefit of the doubt. You have to handle them and guide them to grow. So I assumed that some of them do not really know the rudiment of the game, because they were in the process going through the orientation program. They have not even finished the orientation program. Now that after orientation, they are going to sit down and be looking at
and understand how
the standing orders and be reading the Hansas and understand the way it goes. So
the right-hand
myself, based on this, I took some of those things on a lighter note. With this,
you didn't take any offense.
No. I didn't take any offense, unless you are becoming excessive.
Were there some who were becoming excessive with you?
Well, I didn't like the attitude of Gideon Buako. Because you are supposed to ask this number of questions. You know you don't have a right to ask a question again. So why would you want to? John Dako, you are supposed to ask one question. You've been given the opportunity to ask one question. I even accommodated you the second question. Why do you want to go in again? You understand? So for me, by my nature, I hate people that take liberty for license.
But you know he held a news conference subsequently.
Well, they are...
That is where they described you as extremely partisan.
Yes,
these are completely new members.
That is what I'm saying, that they are entitled to it.
Is that parliamentary?
So, to quote Captain Smart, he said that as a member of parliament, you should know that before you speak, you must catch the eye of the speaker. But the first sitting, we accommodated. Some will just get up and put the microphone on without having the audience with the speaker. Under normal circumstances, you ask such a person to resume the seat, and you can decide not to give the opportunity to that person to speak anymore for that day. Because, you see, there is a culture of behavior in Parliament. And when you come, I would advise that you sit and observe that particular culture so that you can take off well and land well. Other than that, you have a problem with the takeoff, and your landing may also have a problem.
Your right-hand side.
When you entered Parliament,
right,
you really have to observe.
Your right-hand side, the majority, they also didn't help the situation, did they? On two grounds. One, they spent their time most of their times not asking questions, but praising the nominees. Two, we also saw the Elembele MP and Adakulu MP counteract the minority side on your behalf.
Well, I will indicate that that was the first attempt. I have decided that I won't put certain things in the public, but let me just say this. The very day of the vetting, there is the need for us to help two of the nominees to travel outside of the country. And they have a time period within which to catch the flight. So if I want to exchange in that kind of banter with Afanyu markings, it means we'll take a lot of time vetting them. Right. And they wouldn't be able to travel that very day. And the implication of not traveling that day will not be in the interest of our dear nation. So sometimes, based on certain things, you need to sacrifice to let go. Because I have a knowledge of what they are traveling to go and do. Because as we speak right now, Ghana, in the energy sector, we have a crisis. And that crisis needs to be addressed. Other than that, the entire country will be in trouble. So if I will have to sacrifice showing off my power as the chairman of the vetting committee, putting my authority, which will drag issues as a result of which they will be disabled from traveling. I believe the greater thing that I have done to Ghana is to sacrifice exerting that my authority to enable the vetting to be concluded on time, to enable them travel outside the country to do what they are supposed to do, to serve the situation that is confronting us. That is why, this is just the gist. That is why I said, probably I know, what Ghanaians do not know. So sitting down there, I really know what I was doing and the aim that I want to achieve. And I've been successful in achieving that particular aim. So one day, posterity will judge.
Will understand you.
Yes.
Are you suited for the role of chairman of the committee?
Well, I've been in Parliament for some time. When I came to Parliament through by-election, the very first position I occupied was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, a role that people say I have discharged creditably. From there, I became a vice chairman for a subsidiary legislation committee. And before this day, I was the ranking member for Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. A lot of people are with the view that if you don't come to TV station to speak, then it means you are not working as a member of parliament. But to be able to assess the members of parliament, you must use the Hansard to assess them. So on this note, I will urge Ghanaians to use the Hansard to assess me whether I am suitable for the position of the appointment committee or I am not suitable for the position of the appointment
and also
committee.
first deputy speaker.
And also
This is why you're
first deputy
Indeed.
speaker of parliament.
We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll go into other issues post the appointment, the leadership changes we are seeing in parliament, and your role as first deputy speaker. Don't go away.
Very well.
Welcome back. First Deputy Speaker and Akachi South MP is my guest here on Hot Issues. Again, I appreciate you talking to us.
Thank you.
What are the
much.
changes that we'll see going forward?
Well, Bernard Ahiafor as the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament of the Republic of Ghana will dedicate himself to do the work of the First Deputy Speaker and the work of Parliament of the Republic of Ghana very diligently and reliably. I promise the entire nation that I will be fair to all manner of people sitting in the chair as Mr. Speaker. I promise Ghanaians that I will be more than firm to ensure that the rules apply. Members are really going to be guided to be able to operate within the ambit of the law. I am telling the whole world that I will discharge my responsibility, taking guidance from the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament.
Right.
I want to serve him as a deputy speaker and serve him well.
So the last vetting that we saw, have you concluded work on that?
The last vetting, we've concluded the actual vetting. What is left now is the report of the committee, which will have to be laid in Parliament in accordance with the procedure. So Parliament being masters of our own rules, we either allow the 48 hours to lapse before we move on, or we can, by a procedural motion, waive that 48 hours and take the report the same day to consider whether or not the nominees are going to be approved.
Will we see you operate differently at the next appointments committee sitting?
Well, Bernard Ahiafor will operate the same, but things are going to be different.
Like what?
Well, people are saying the last vetting was disorderly. Things are going to be a bit orderly this time.
Orderly. Are we going to see you?
Experience is the best teacher.
Is the best teacher.
So the last sitting has taught us a lot of experience. So at our pre-sitting, certain things will be ironed out before we sit down there to do the vetting.
Let's look at the bigger space of Parliament. We know that the majority side, your side, is seeing some changes in leadership. We understand that Mahama Yarga has been tipped as majority leader. Your thoughts on that?
Well, currently, Honorable Kesel Atoba Fosun is a majority leader, but he has been designated for a position of a minister responsible for finance. He has been vetted. If approved, he cannot be a leader and a finance minister at the same time. So it means that he's going to move to the finance ministry. The majority leadership position is vacant. So there are proposals which are under consideration. But so far, I'm likely to also tip Honorable Mahama Yarga as the next majority leader.
he'll do a great job.
Yes, with his experience. He's my senior in Parliament. He's also my senior at the bar. And having regard to his pedigree, his knowledge about the Constitution and the standing orders of Parliament, as well as other relevant laws, I believed he will be able to operate as a very good leader.
A very good leader. Just one last one on the vetting, just before we look at the general picture of Parliament again. So the 3 we have seen already, they are likely to be approved, right?
Yes. So far, I haven't heard anything to the effect that they were not going to be approved. You know, during vetting, whether or not the person will be approved, you can smell it at the vetting.
Oh, how is that?
Oh, a side will by all means indicate that we are not in favor of this minister or not. But I haven't sensed that indication from any member of the vetting committee. And the committee will take decision on them. Definitely, and make a recommendation to the House. So there are 2 things that will happen. Either the committee has a split decision, or they have a majority decision or a unanimous decision in their recommendation to Parliament.
I see. Now, your leadership, we've talked about Mahama Yariga. What else, or who else would you expect to be brought to the table or leadership for your side?
Well, following the communication from the President, which we received today, Honorable Kwame Govins Agboja has been designated as the minister responsible for roads. So definitely, he cannot also assume the ministerial position and continue to be a chief whip. Yes. So definitely, there will be a vacancy there. And I believed from today until Parliament comes on Tuesday, there will be a determination regarding the leaders who will be given a ministerial appointment, and then those who will be elevated to fill in the gap. So probably by Monday, we should be able to have a full complement of those who are going to take the majority leadership. Being the majority leader, if the deputy is going, definitely the deputy, the whip, and then the deputy whips.
How do you think the changes would impact the majority's leadership style, so to speak?
Well, there are equally competent members of Parliament from the majority side. Very experienced senior members. So I do not contemplate a situation where there will be adverse effect on the front bench of the majority.
Things should be the same or better?
Yeah, things should be the same or better. We live a life that every day we must improve. So I believed they have sat in Parliament, they saw the performance of our current leaders. So it is incumbent upon them to maintain the standard and improve on it.
I see. You worried a lot about the new entrance to Parliament, particularly from what you saw on the Appointments Committee. Does that affect or change the overall quality we have in this 9th Parliament?
Not really. I am not otherwise saying that these members of Parliament are not good. That is far from the point. But in every institution, when you enter, you need to observe. Your observation will lead you into knowing more about the organization. So my advice to them is that they should hasten slowly. They should take the parliamentary work seriously, read the rules book, go into the code of conduct of Parliament, and then come out with the do's and the don'ts.
We have seen
catch
some
up.
of the misbehavior is coming from the seniors, but we won't go any deeper into that.
Well, I would want to say that in every society, just like in this TV3, some may be morally righteous, others may be
Others
contrary.
may not be.
So no matter the time that they spend at TV3, if they won't change, they will not change.
I see. Some have said that what we saw at the appointments committee's first sitting, the minority was disruptive. The majority at the end of the day had the numbers. It's reflective of what we are going to see in the bigger flow of Parliament. I'm going somewhere with that. We know that the majority side has told us they will not be a rubber stamp for the executive.
Yes.
But you have the numbers. What are the checks and balances?
You see, before you become a member of Parliament, you are made to take 2 oaths, and you should be able to live up to the oath that you have taken. No member of Parliament is supposed to be a rubber stamp. I understand we run the whip system, but there is a mechanism of taking a caucus decision. At the point of taking the caucus decision, you bring your disagreement to bear on issues. And you should be able to influence matters at that particular caucus meeting to tilt in one way or the other. So it is not only what happened at the floor of Parliament. A caucus may take a decision to do something, but they will put it before the entire caucus. At that place, debate will be welcome and a holistic decision will be taken. That is what happened normally in a whip system. Now, when a decision is taken by the caucus, then they can crank the whip because we are also part of that particular decision making. So I do not think being part of that particular decision making leading to the cranking of the whip can make you a rubber stamp. So NDC is a social democratic party. We are really going to operate in the interest of the mother Ghana. We are not going to act as a rubber stamp. And that is what you are seeing. People are of the view that with our numbers, we can even go ahead and do vetting without minority. But is that what we want to do? We have the power. But it is not always that you have to show you have the power. NDC is a party that is very accommodative. So we shall continue to accommodate them with a guide that the fact that you are being accommodated doesn't mean the opportunity given you should be abused. So I'm not looking forward that we one day get to a situation in Parliament giving our numbers, then the minority will say we are staging a walkout, or at the committee level, then they will say we are staging a walkout, knowing the constitutional imperative in Article 104 of the Constitution, that given the absolute majority, they can proceed as one side to do things within the ambit of the Constitution, and no court of competent jurisdiction will be able to set it aside. We would not be abusive.
Right, but
the power given us by Ghanaians, we can assure Ghanaians that we use the power in their best interest and will not abuse it.
So you're asking the Ghanaian people to trust you?
Yes.
The majority caucus,
yes.
that you will not be a
rubber
stamp.
Will not be abusive at all.
But the truth of the matter is there really are no checks and balances if you choose to be, because you have an overwhelming majority.
Yes, that is what it means.
That is the truth.
Yes, that is what it means. Because most of the things that we do, Parliament, well, if you look at Article 102, we need a two-thirds to commence proceedings. And you look at Article 104, we need 50 plus 1 to be able to take decision. Now, given the numbers that we have now, we can always have 50 plus 1 to be able to take decision. But the cardinal principle is that whatever decision that we are going to take, the decision must be in the best interest of Ghana. That is our guiding principle. So, for instance, if there is a decision to be taken, and that decision is in the interest of Ghana, and it doesn't favor the majority, it doesn't favor the minority. The minority will have their say as to why that particular decision doesn't favor them. We saw in the previous parliament people like PC Ahiafor that will get up on the floor of parliament and disagree with his government position.
Right.
So we look forward to seeing people of that nature in the ninth parliament, where if the decision is not good, it's not in the best interest of Ghana, they should be able to come out to say that this decision is not in the best interest of Ghana. That is what I'm telling you by practice. First of all, there will be a caucus to take a decision at the caucus. And at that caucus, we brainstorm, we play the devil's advocate to actually come out with a decision that will be in the best interest of Ghana.
Thank you for talking to us.
You're welcome.
Bernard Ahiafor is first Deputy Speaker of Parliament. He's also a Kachi South MP and he's chair of the Appointments Committee of Parliament. More of this interview on our socials, including YouTube. I'm Kemini Amano, and this is Hot Issues.